Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another classic horror movie review tonight. Tonight we're looking at an absolute classic, the 1922 original vampire film Nosferatu. So we're going to be looking at that tonight. This was made in 1922. This edition is released by the BFI, and it's a fantastic edition. It comes with a wonderful booklet, which is really cool, and it's got so much information about the makings of the film and the new score, the music score, because this is a silent film. So it's in, I can't say it's in black and white because it's in many colours, and the colours play a big part of the film. This film is heavily based on Bram Stoker's Dracula. It is pretty much the same story, but we got a different vampire in this one called Count Orlok. And the film does sort of have the same sort of characteristics. It starts off in a peaceful little town where we see our hero, whose name is Hunters, but obviously in Bram Stoker's Dracula, his name is Harker. And he's there with his wife and his boss from his work, and he works for like a sort of like an estate agent sort of place. And the everybody looks really creepy in the film. His wife looks like a zombie. He looks really creepy, and his boss at work, he looks extremely creepy. In fact, his boss reminds me of a character in the other silent film that we reviewed not so long ago on my channel. And he's come across a letter from this Count Orlok, and he talks to Hunter, wants him to go because he wants to buy an old building in the small town where they live. And he sort of thinks, well, why don't we sell him that building? He says, he shows him like this sort of like derelict sort of house that is opposite where Hunter lives. And so he wants Hunter to go off on this trip to Transylvania to speak to this Count Orlok about buying this house. And so he goes to his wife and tells him he's got to go on this long trip out to this Transylvania, and she's not very happy. She's very upset, and there's a lot of heartache and a lot of heartbreak, and the story is really well told in a sort of very dramatic sort of scene, because it's all very overactive, a very stark look, very pale white sort of like look on all these people's faces. They were obviously with stage makeup made all white and things, and it's really sort of like shocking when you first see it if you're not used to it, and all these sort of wonderful things going on. Anyway, our hero, he goes off on his trip. He gets on his horse, leaves his village, and off he goes to his trip. Now, obviously, the original one was based in England and Europe. This looks like it's solely in Europe. I believe this is a German-made film. I'm not quite sure of the origin of this film, but I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. But because that's what people like to do. Anyway, he's off on his trip, and then he arrives at a small town on his way to Count Orlok's castle. And he goes into this sort of bar, pub, just like Dracula, and he goes and has a drink and asks for food and says, hurry up, I want it quick because I've got to go into Count Orlok's castle. And then the whole village is shocked, and the music sort of comes to an abrupt stop, and they're all sort of shocked. Said, no, you don't want to go there. It's haunted, and the woodlands going towards there is full of werewolves. And then we sort of cut to like an outside scene where we see these horses in the field running away from this so-called werewolf, which clearly looks like a wild dog or a hyena. It looks absolutely resembles nothing of a wolf whatsoever, but it's still very cool. Anyway, he settles down for the night, And the next day he goes off on the stagecoach off towards uh, Count Orlok's castle. And then we sort of see it for the first time, and you don't really see a lot of it. It's just like a bizarre shaped rock, and it's pretty cool and eerie. And the coach won't go any further, so they drop him off with his bag. So we can't go any further. It's haunted. We're not going any further. No matter how much money you give us, we're not going any further. So he gets off, and then this strange stagecoach arrives, really, really fast like one of Count Orlok's sort of lookalikes, if you like, and he Hunter goes into the uh, stagecoach, and off it goes, moving really quick, like really quick like that. It's really strange, and it takes him up to the castle and drops him off. And then he enters the castle, and this is where we see Count Orlok for the first time. And what a presence! What an absolute presence on the screen he's got. He's a very frail, very skinny, with extremely long hands and fingers, and he looks very, very gaunt. He's got bald head, and his eyes are all made up black around it, very gothic looking, and very sort of classic, sort of like horror sort of image. And he starts talking to Hunter and says, he's glad that he's come, and he welcomes him to his home. And then they go in and to something to eat, and he has something to eat and cuts his finger. So the Count gets all excited and starts to drink his blood, sort of thing. And then they settle down for the evening to talk and stuff like that. And then it cuts to the next day, and Hunter wakes up in the chair of sleep, and he's got 2 marks there, and he thinks he's been bitten by mosquitoes. Or has he? Because that's all the synopsis I'm going to give you, because you should know the story of this anyway, because it does follow Bram Stoker's Dracula story. And we're then treated on in the film to some amazing classic horror images of Count Orlok, because he's absolutely wonderful. What do I think of Nosferatu? It's incredible. It's an amazing film. It's so cool. Yes, it's black and white, sort of. It's it's a silent film, so there's no dialogue, no words. The words are replaced with writing on the screen, and the rest is all done by the music and the color of the palette color of the scene, each scene. Like when we're in the town at the beginning of the film, the palette is very sort of goldeny and sort of warm and welcoming, and a very sort of homely sort of feel to it. Although him and his wife look like they're dead skeletons and zombies, but the actual palette of the film is a very warm feeling. And then when he reaches Transylvania, it turns blue, and we get this cold and sort of fearful sort of image and sort of striking sort of visuals, until he goes into the pub, and then it returns to like a more sort of goldeny sort of warm sort of thing. But then when he's outside and heading towards the castle, we get treated to a mixture of blue and reds. So obviously the reds obviously represent like the vampire, the sort of the blood sucking vampire, and the blues of the cold of it, sort of like, because it's dead, because a vampire is dead, it's an undead, it is a zombie really. And we get all these wonderful sort of contrasts in the film that sort of brings the story to life. And the visuals of Count Orlok is absolutely terrifying to this day. He is so, to me, he's the most scariest looking of the Dracula Nosferatus. He looks really absolutely terrifying on screen. And you could have imagined, you got to vision yourself being back in the 1920s and seeing this for the very first time. I mean, we see so many things now, nothing's really shocking. But back then, this would have been the most shocking thing anyone's seen. Anyway, the story carries on down the line of Bram Stoker's where he buys the house and obviously the love sort of triangle thing going on. So I'm not going to spoil that anymore for you. Now, the pluses of this edition, BFI have done an amazing job bringing this up to the best as they can, because it does look still very, very grainy and very, very sort of like lots of noise on the film. But I like that too. I think that sort of really adds to the film, and I think it shows its age. And I think you want it to look. If it looked all pristine and clean, you'd be thinking it doesn't feel like an old film. It doesn't feel like this historical horror film, but it does when you're watching it. And it's like you've got all different sort of sepia colours and all sorts of things going on, and also the sort of screen sort of darkens in and blackens out from scene to scene, which is really, really cool. And then when you get onto the sort of like the boat scene with the vampire and the rats and stuff, it's absolutely terrifying. It's extremely well acted considering it's a silent film. It's really, really cool. Absolutely amazing. So let's not waste any time and score it as an essential watch and give it a 10 out of 10. If you're a horror fan, if you are a horror fan, you need this in your collection. It's just, it's wonderful. Yes, it's old, so you know it's not got the stories or the the today's horror films have the jump scares. This just has oodles and oodles of atmosphere, and it's just shivery at times, and I absolutely love it. Absolutely amazing film. Nosferatu, 10 out of 10. Any of you guys seen it? If you have, let me know down below what you think of it. It's one of those greatest sort of horror films, like the Cabinet film that I've already reviewed on my channel. They're so amazing, and without these films, we wouldn't have the horror that we have today. We wouldn't have gone on. They wouldn't have gone on into the 1930s and 40s and made these classic films that the Universal Studios did. Without these sort of films that came up before, and it's just absolutely incredible, and it still stands up today. It really does still stand up as an amazing piece of artwork and an amazing horror film. Absolutely awesome. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please check out some horror channels for me before the next video. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man View Film, RS Designs, Pizzlewell, I Am the Ice Lord, Cat Watches Horror Movies, Grumpy Andrew's Haunted House, and a massive shout out to my lad. Till the next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.